Vessels that came to the harbors here in Chicago, they used to pass with the same frequency as the flights come and go now from O'Hare Airport. The bridges back in the day, you can see Lakeshore Drive Bridge there in the distance, used to open all day, every day. The bridges back in the day when vessels had the right of way, naturally as vehicles became more prevalent and traffic built up, those laws changed. But if you were downtown this morning, maybe you saw some of the bridges opening up. Wednesdays and Saturdays, beginning and end of boat season, they open these bridges up to allow a flotilla of sailboats to make their way from dry dock up to the Havas. Now, straight ahead of us there in the distance, there's just one of the 13 harbors here in Chicago. That's called DuSable Harbor. You can see a few masts out there, a few yachts. Some people act very quickly to get their boats into the water. So we'll see a glimpse of the boating culture here in Chicago. And I'll do my best to make fun of some people on their boats. Boaters behave ridiculously, as you may or may not be aware. So as we go along, typically I'll tell you about the buildings as they pass us on the right-hand side. We do pass everything twice. And yes, of course, occasionally we'll come to the left-hand side of the vessel or we'll go to the forward. But don't worry, I'll let you all know where to look as we explore downtown Chicago.
So cool.
So Chicago is regarded as being the birthplace of the modern-day skyscraper, which is to say that steel framing was first used here in Chicago back in 1885. A man named William LeBaron Jenney designed the home insurance building with this steel skeleton. Changed the game completely for development. Buildings in Chicago doubled in height. 5 stories in height was the tallest one could build in Chicago prior to 1885. The home insurance building, the first quote-unquote skyscraper, a whopping 10 stories tall. We do kind of chuckle to think of a 10-story tall skyscraper, but then again, if you double anything, it's a pretty big deal, no matter what it is. For example, double your salary. That's nice, isn't it? Enjoy that. So yeah, the Chicago style of architecture emerged on the home insurance building. The structure featured a very decorative base and had a very decorative cornice. So like a Greco-Romanesque column, had a base, a shaft, and a cornice. The Beaux-Arts style, to that point, harkens back to the Greco-Roman style of architecture. So when we get by Michigan Avenue, guys and girls, I'll show you the original skyline, the old stone, the old brick, the old terracotta, and then I'll bring you through time as we explore Art Deco, very popular style. Also, too, we'll talk about the international style, kind of when like glass and steel began to rule supreme. And I'll bring you folks to present day with the postmodern structures. Today, architects are bringing back color. They're bringing back historical accents, and they'll use materials in a variety of ways. So with the newer structures, look for the use of brick, stone, steel, glass, all in one project. And please do enjoy the bridge houses. See on the right and left-hand side here, this is where the Lakeshore Drive Bridge is operated from. All the bridge houses are different. So as we go by, enjoy those. This is also the first of 4 double-decker bridges that you will see. Alright, here we go. Very striking, the beauty of the main bridge as you clear the Lakeshore Drive Bridge. Please join me on the right-hand side of the vessel here. These are prime-time real estate, as we say. That's Riverview 1 and 2 by James DeStefano. You will hear James DeStefano's name again. Built in the early 2000s, you got 2 towers, very nautically themed, 29 and 32 stories tall, respectively. And then there's actually 17 4-story townhomes along the water's edge. And you can saunter along the water's edge there if you wish. If you do so, wave to me later. Yeah. So what I want you to appreciate here at Riverview 1 and 2, aside from the location and beauty, is the material. Again, I mentioned that postmodernists are going to use brick, stone, steel, glass. You can see the rooftop terraces of the townhomes, very neat. Back in 2005, they sold the parking spaces here at Riverview 1 and 2, and each parking space was $50,000. $50K to park. Last year, some feller in San Francisco paid $75,000 for a parking space. Me, I pay $100 a year, and I park on the street. Oh yeah, saving millions. Watch out for me. But there are a number of ways, guys and girls, to enjoy the water's edge here on the river. Certainly Lake Michigan. If you've not sauntered along any portion of our 28 miles of lakeshore, do so. Not the warmest just yet here in Chicago, but people in the city will tell you, today's a great day to go to a beach. What are you crazy? So enjoy the water's edge. The river, though, took longer to make the turn towards beautification accessibility. If you guys want to see how cool we look as we travel along the river, that's a carbon copy of this vessel. That's what we look like. I do apologize in advance. Their push boat in the back is larger than ours. And you know size matters on the water. It's like a party boat with information. Alright, join me please to the forward of the vessel. Let's go downriver. As if you cannot tell, it is the Donald Trump International Tower and Hotel. Trump Tower is our second tallest here in the city. It was built in 2009 by Adrian Smith. More of this postmodernism, this futuristic look. 92 stories in height, over 1,300 feet tall. The glass and steel on the exterior, very beautiful. On the Trump Tower, that glass and steel, it's called a curtain wall. Now, curtain walls are not load-bearing walls. They actually just hang on the side of the building, and they give you floor-to-ceiling windows without sacrificing structural integrity. And though I just made a big deal about steel framing and skyscrapers, Trump Tower is actually North America's largest poured-reinforced concrete structure. In the Trump, there's 720 million pounds of concrete. The building features a temperature-controlled indoor parking structure. There's a 5-star hotel. There's 472 luxury condominiums, 4 penthouses, a bar called Rebar, which is pretty legit. And then there's a restaurant called 16. 16 is on the 16th floor. That's the price you'll pay for a martini as well. Yeah, after tax and tip, 20 bucks for a drink. Yeah, you're fired. That's one impression I'm not working on. Left-hand side of the vessel, join me past the bridge house. You'll see the Aon Center. See the North Carolina granite? Yeah, the Aon. Built in the 70s by Edward Durrell Stone with Perkins and Will. You all might remember it as the Standard Oil and Amoco Oil buildings. The Aon, only 9 feet taller than the John Hancock, our 4th tallest building here in Chicago. They are building an observation deck on the Aon, so for those of you who have always loved the old Standard Oil and Amoco Oil building, you can go up on top of the structure all in good time. Just mentioned our 4th tallest, the John Hancock. Guys and girls, it's a brief window of time to see it. I'll point it out again later. It's on the right-hand side. It's a whole mile away from us. Look for the white antenna and the big X's on the facade. Back in 1969, when the Hancock was built, there she is, that was the tallest building in the world. Dr. Fazlur Khan, an ingenious engineer from Bangladesh, invented cross-bracing, the X's that you see on the Hancock. 100 stories in height, over 1,100 feet tall. And again, I'll show you all the Hancock once again as we pass by it later. So we'll go through the very futuristic Trump by Adrian Smith, again 2009 was completed, and we'll go down to the right of it. This is a lovely contrast of old and new. You can see what's happened over many years. Do get a photograph of that white glazed terracotta structure with the clock tower on top. Easily one of the most iconic structures in Chicago, the Wrigley Building. Built in the early 1920s, there are 250,000 white glazed terracotta tiles on the Wrigley. Each tile has a number, the numbers are in a database, and they use that database to clean and or replace the tiles over time. It's incredible. There are 6 different shades of white glazed terracotta. They do get brighter as you go up. The building is comprised of 2 buildings, designed by Graham Anderson, Probst & White. Folks, when you come down here, do walk in between the 2 towers that comprise the Wrigley. Once you're in that little walkway, you'll see the Greco-Roman influence very clearly. Now from here, if you think of the Parthenon, think of the Colosseum, the Beaux-Arts style really pops. There's some Spanish revivalism influence, as well as some French Renaissance influence. They say the building is a tribute to the White City, the nickname given to the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893. On the right-hand side of the vessel, you'll see a street sign, DuSable Founders Way. Above your head, you'll see a bridge, the DuSable Bridge. This is the original shoreline of Lake Michigan. Back in the day, 1770s, DuSable, a French and African man from Haiti, a fur trader. He was the first non-native resident in Chicago. He literally lived just by the side of the boat there on the right where we sailed by. Now do please join me back at the Wrigley. See the decorative base and decorative cornice? I mentioned the Chicago style. So the Wrigley has the Beaux-Arts influence, the Chicago style influence. Let's all wave simultaneously to the right. And the children in the back of that water taxi there, no one looking. Join me left-hand side really quickly, please. I want to show you some more of this Chicago style, some more of this Beaux Arts style. This is the former London Guarantee and Accident Building. Let's go to the very top. See the machine style columns? They are repeated at the base, though not visible currently. Indiana limestone, the building dates back to the early 20s. The London House, as it's now known as Hotel, do check it out. That building sits on the site of what used to be Fort Dearborn, built in 1803. Continuing with the old skyline, right? Keep the glass and steel out of it for a moment. Join me to the forward left, you'll see a dome. Very beautiful, it's called the Belvedere. That's the former jeweler's building. They designed the jewelers to look like a 15th century Italian monastery. See the different shades of terracotta, see the decorative base and the decorative cornice. During Prohibition, the Belvedere on top had a restaurant called the Stratosphere. Late at night, it became a speakeasy. Jaime Weiss, Johnny Torrio, Alphonse Capone, yeah, they drank on top of the jewelers. Swing it back to the right and look straight up at the T-Rump Tower. It's neat to see what's going on from the buildings of old, the stone, the terracotta, to the glass and steel. Now, stay on the right, you'll see a glass box style structure. This is the AMA Plaza. You might remember it as the IBM building. Right away, you'll notice that glass and steel has not always been so decorative and so colorful. It used to be very simplistic. Mies van der Rohe, a man from Germany, founded the international style of architecture here, arguing less is more. He believed that form should follow function. What's neat too is it exposes these buildings for what they are, very simplistically glass and steel. Now the AMA Plaza, built in the 70s, okay? It's the youngest building in Chicago to be declared a historic landmark. Also too, that is Mies van der Rohe's last commercial building he built in the U.S. and it's his only building on the Chicago River. Very influential, Mies van der Rohe in architecture. He actually taught here in Chicago at what is now IIT. Now one of Mies van der Rohe's students, guys and girls, was named Bertrand Goldberg, and Goldberg rejected the ideas of the international style. He didn't care for that glass box. He argued instead, if there are no right angles in nature, there should be no right angles in architecture. This is Marina.
Hey, that's my car right there.
They are poured reinforced concrete, built in the 60s. They are 60 stories apiece. This is one of the first residential developments on the Chicago River. It's one of the first city within a city concepts. When I was young, I called these the corncob buildings. And you've seen these in all the movies done in Chicago. Movies like The Fugitive. Why that movie? No reason whatsoever. Absolutely random. The Blues Brothers, you saw in that film as well. The Hunter with Steve McQueen, while you were sleeping, Sandra Bullock. You know, the list continues. A lot of good films done in Chicago, obviously.
Why is that? Oh, okay.
Good name for a boat here in Chicago. To the forward right, these guys are tying off at the Bridge House Tavern. Some of these people have been here all day, so do look for that. Above the party, you'll see a glass box style structure. This was by Bruce Graham. He's the feller who did the Hancock and the Sears Tower. Notice the blue and green glass, the stainless steel panels that run vertically. You get a bit more decor on this otherwise simplistic structure. Things are pretty calm there at the Bridge House. Maybe everyone took their leave. And I do give my cubbies updates from the television screens. It's all good, man. Around the road, I believe, in Cincy, yeah?
Yeah. Last week we were at that side.
And today they are looking at it.
Today I'm here.
So I like the old brick buildings. I will admit this to you. History nerd, I am. This building on the right, you'll love it. It dates back to 1914. It is one of the few remaining warehouses on the Chicago River. It harkens back to that industrial era. George Nimitz built it. The Reed Murdoch Center is fantastic. It's got a steel frame, and then the exterior is red brick and terracotta. It's just fantastic, as I mentioned. Do appreciate the clock tower on top. See the lion's heads way up there on the tower? That's the symbol for Monarch Foods. Monarch Foods used to occupy the old Reed Murdoch Center. Again, 1914 it was built. I will show you guys some of the older brick buildings as we go along. So we'll springboard from 1914 to 2009. Here's some more of that postmodernism, like the Trump Tower that you saw earlier. This is 300 North LaSalle, here in Shelton. You got 60 stories of articulated glass and steel. The building has a lovely cafe, garden, and restaurant. Part of the zoning laws in Chicago require developments to have this accessibility and beautification. The structure, going green, yeah. The building has a LEED certification, LEED, Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design. The building uses river water for the AC unit. And on top of the tower, a lot of developers do this now, there is an expansive green space up there. And that green space mitigates rain runoff, and that reduces pollution. Hooray! Above your heads, you saw the Wells Street Bridge. It is double-decker. Keep your eye out for the L train on this bridge. L for elevated. For 2 1/4, the L is a great way to see Chicago, as well as a great way to get around the city. So here's our first example of Art Deco. You saw the neoclassical Wrigley, you saw the glass box theory, you've seen the more postmodern style structures of today. Here to the right, this thing's a monster. One of the world's biggest buildings, the Merchandise Mart. Marshall Field paid for it. Graham Anderson Post and White designed it. Notice the limestone and verticality that we get with Art Deco. Also notice please the geometric shapes. Art Deco buildings feature historical accents. See the heads facing the building there? Those are the busts of some of Chicago's big shot merchandisers. Names like Marshall Field, Aaron Montgomery Ward, Huntington Hartford, Julius Rosenwald, Frank Woolworth are up there. See on top of the Merchandise Mart? The elegant setbacks. Zoning laws in the city require developers to reduce the mass of their structure on top so that more sunlight can infiltrate the city streets. Urban planners, were actually afraid, that skyscrapers would block out the sun, and no one wants to live in darkness. So on the Art Deco buildings, look for the reduction of mass on top of the building. And I will point out some nice photo ops of the Merchandise Mart. It's a super impressive building. Joseph P. Kennedy, for many years, owned the building. So back by Michigan Avenue, the DuSable Bridge. I mentioned that's the old shoreline of the lake. Everything east of that bridge behind us there was landfill. I do want to welcome you all to this location as well. This is called Wolf Point, very significant in Chicago's past as well. As you'll notice right away, the branches of the river all collide here. It's a symbol of Chicago. It's like a Y shape. Look for it on bridges, old buildings, utility closets. So it stands to reason, right, that in the 1830s, as this area was emerging as a small town, as Chicago became a city, March 4th, 1837, along these very banks here at Wolf Point, this is where everybody lived. Not just tourist residents, but imagine churches, drugstores, ferry boat companies bringing folks to and from the different banks, hotels, taverns, saloons, things like that. It was actually here at Wolf Point that Chicago was named. Chicago, it does come from the term that was used by the Native Americans who lived here first prior to European exploration. The natives called this area Chicagua. Chicagua has a couple different translations. It could mean strong or great. It can also mean smelly wild onion. Onions of the portage. Even the word skunky comes up. Chicago was built on an old swamp. Makes sense, right? All these waterways kind of leading into Lake Michigan, very soggy, very odorous. I mentioned all the landfill here in the city. The onions that grew along the banks of the Chicago River were like remarkably stinky, very odorous, but the natives utilized them as a dietary item. They named the swamp after these onions, calling it Chicagua. We call it Chicago. Welcome to stinky, smelly, oniony Chicago. And as we mosey onto the North Branch here, I want to draw your attention to the brick building in the distance. It's the oldest one on the tour that I'll show you. Stands to reason to do some work on it. That's the Fulton House by Frank D. Abbott, and it was built in 1898. Wrap your mind around that, Jane. In 1908, they added the top floor. You see how the top floor just doesn't match, despite the construction, obviously. The top floor was then sealed off, along with the walls. Frozen pork and frozen horsehair, 5.5 to 8 foot thick walls. They turned the building into a cold storage warehouse. Dairy products, delicious. In the 80s, watch the sun there, in the 80s it was renovated, the building, into condos. The feller who did the renovation, like you and I, coolest cat ever, loved to sail, loved boating. His name's Harry Weiss. Harry Weiss gave the building dock access, pretty darn rare on the river. Notice the starfish on the facade, go to the very top. Round windows that look like porthole style windows. Stay with me, left-hand side. See the porthole windows? Yeah, see the triangular shape of the units, reminiscent of the sail of the ship. Yeah. Harry Weiss, once again, 1988. Everyone loves them. Check them out. The Chicago River Cottages. There's 4 units here. They are 4 and 5 stories tall, respectively. And everyone's got a boat dock, an elevator, and a parking spot. Everyone wave to the child simultaneously. Give it to her. Hello. Oh, she's so chill. The cottages are awesome, as you saw. One of the inspirations for them too, not just the boats, while in the Navy, Harry Weiss was sailing along the Danube, and they saw these homes like haphazardly built into the mountainside. So he took that image, put it into the cottages, And I will tell you all about the railroad bridge that you saw suspended back there when we
Right,
head back
I
into the
know.
downtown. So yeah, the old industrial, polluted, disgusting Chicago River. Not always meant to be enjoyed as it is today, the Chicago River. Here to the right, I can use this building as an example. Now this is the East Bank Club. It's a high-end fitness facility. Years ago when they built it, there were no windows. There was no ivy, no trees. There was no promenade that ran the length of the river. So if you'd indulge me, pretend they were all gone, those features, you'll notice developers built the building to turn its back on the Chicago River. Nobody cared what their buildings looked like on the Chicago River. Again, wasn't meant to be enjoyed. So to keep with the zoning laws over the many years, they added the park in the distance, the promenade, the trees, the windows, the ivy, everything that makes it look so nice, so accessible. And as we come about here on the North Branch, really nice views off the left-hand side. And on the right, just for fun, if you guys enjoyed the Reed Murdoch Center, that brick warehouse with the clock tower, in the distance you'll see the Riverbank Lofts, built in 1909 by George Nimitz. Notice the use of brick and terracotta once again. That building used to be home to a paper company. It's kind of cool.
And a small space, you know, they don't know.
So, what waste? Tight water, with you see any China?
Yeah, we have the Indian name. We didn't see a
Now, on the left-hand side here, you get that railroad bridge, pretty cool. And of course, the Sun Times building, you know, because print material. You could Photoshop that boat out there, that's not our boat. No, I'm just kidding, man, it's all good. And then that little 18-foot electric Duffy, that's a rental boat. So keep an eye on that boat, because sure as you're born, the pilot on that boat has no idea what he's doing. Chicago Electric Boat Company, and they operate out of Marina City. So if you want to sign your life away, you and 9 friends can take one of these boats out. They require a 2-hour minimum. I think it's $1.50 an hour. Look for the Groupon. That's $99 for 2 hours. Hey, how do you know all this stuff? I am very obsessed with boats. And you know, I know a lot of these cats who run the different outfits. So I'll plug the company, sure, Shoreline. But there's other ways to get out boating now. If you want to really enjoy the waterways, get out on Lake Michigan. Join Navy Pier. Join us at Navy Pier for our classic lake tour. We realize you all might not have the best kind of boat in the world, which is a friend's boat. So we'll be your friends. Join us. We got water taxis.
$19.
It's fun. And just really quickly on the right, you saw them undoubtedly. It's Kinsey Park. There's 74-story townhomes there. Each one of them was sold before they even broke ground. So again, the zoning laws, that promenade, the balconies, the patios, rooftop terraces, just inviting the water right into your home. Very lovely, very nice. We jokingly say those are recession-proof. The figures don't lie. How much do you tell us? Never. All right, so back in 2000. I'd like to get away from the buildings just to not make the residents feel uneasy. Back in 2000, they sold the 4-story townhomes for $1.2 million. You want one now, homie? 1.8. Recession. My favorite feature here at the Chicago River Cottages, that's right, you know it, on top of the circular staircase, bam, birdhouse. That's right. To the forward, beautiful view of downtown. We're peeking into Chicago's grid system at an angle. So what you're getting here is you're peeking into our loop. Maximum skyscraper exposure. I made that expression up 3 years ago. It's a gem. Maximum skyscraper exposure. The bridge above your head. Dig it. Built it. Check out the counterweight on the left. And whether or not you're in engineering or not, just looking at that machinery there, the way it works is incredible. Alright. Welcome. I spend a lot of time in Delavan. You don't know Lake Delavan in Wisconsin? No? It's down by Lake Geneva. Yeah, Shazam. Notice the Miesian influence here on the right, the glass box theory. This is Gateway Centers 1 and 2. This is like the beginning of the West Loop, if there ever was one. The area used to be known as Skid Row. This is a very questionable area of Chicago to be in back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. East Van Road didn't use these buildings. They were just done the style we found it. These buildings here, Gateway Centers 1 and 2, were done by Bruce Graham and Robert Diamante with the firm Skid Row in Maryland. Now these trains do feed into Ogilvy and Union train station. During the week, hundreds of thousands of people are shuttled in and or out of Chicago on these lines. Union Station, guys and girls, was part of the Burnham Plan of 1909. He envisioned a lot of public buildings. We don't get the best look at it, but it's a block away to the right past the flagpoles there. Look at Union Station. Go see the Great Hall at Union Station. If you're in this part of the world later, check out the Sears Tower or the like. Go see the Great Hall at Union Station. Obviously during the week, don't go during the commute. You'll just be aggravated. Yeah. When you guys saw the John Hancock building earlier, we saw it from a mile away, and you saw X's on it, a much larger variety. Here's kind of a smaller scale example of it. Essentially all the weight is displaced to the exterior, and that allows for very open, columnless interiors. Dr. Fazler Khan, again, the engineer who invented this. Fazler Khan was also the engineer on the Sears Tower. 5 years after the Hancock, he and Bruce Graham built the Sears. We saw it earlier. We did catch up with it, in fact. Join me here, left-hand side, look straight up. Enjoy a really nice perspective of Chicago's tallest building. And join me in smiling and waving, because in those four glass boxes up there are people, and they are taking our photographs. Together forever, you and me. Frozen in time. Visitors can walk out onto it, obviously. Nothing separates you, and over 1,300 feet down, but about 1.5 inches of glass. So yeah, it's not for the screamers. You know what? If you don't like heights, don't go into these buildings. I'll tell you also, all steel frame buildings sway in the wind. If you don't bend, you'll break, right? They call it wind bracing. Due to the height and due to the mass of the Sears, on any given day, the building will sway up to 18 inches in either direction. I've seen doors in offices opening and closing on their own in the Sears. On windy days, you can feel the building moving. Kid you not, on the upper floors. All it takes is about 30-mile-an-hour gusts, and we get those pretty regularly here in Chicago. Now, another one of the buildings that Burnham envisioned in his grandiose plan of Chicago was a major public building that would have an expressway go right on through it. Coming into view on the right, check it out. The thing's a monster. We actually call it the Incredible Hulk. This is the former main Chicago post office, and as you can see, Congress Parkway goes right on through it. 18 stories in height. It is Art Deco by Graham Anderson Post and White. This was the largest post office of its kind in the world when it opened up in the early 30s. Remember the Batman film, The Dark Knight? Remember the bank robbery scene at the beginning? They filmed that in the northern portion here. All the buses in the end that took off, they came right across the Van Buren Street Bridge beaches. Remember the Batcave scenes, the illuminated ceilings and the stone walls? They filmed the Batcave scenes in the old post office. That room, that enormous room that served as the Batcave, that's just one of the 18 rooms that are like it called production floors. Back in the day, yeah, an army of people sorted mail by hand in those rooms. The building was built with the expectation of the expressway going through. The building, 1930s, above your head, 1954, Congress Parkway. Built during the expressway boom in the post-WW2 era. July in the sun, y'all, if you want to appreciate how big the old post office is, this is the view from here. The building's been vacant since 1996. It's like this forgotten relic here in the South Loop. A number of owners over the years, a lot of nonsense, political upheaval, gabagool, eminent domain, this and that. The developer who will buy it is 601W Companies. They're based on Manhattan. They did the Chelsea Market development, if you're familiar with that. Whole building, renovated into modern day use. So we in Chicago are very excited to watch the old post office get purchased, get reinvented, and bring a lot of attention to this area. Now, do hang on to your drinks. Watch out. Don't fall over. Here comes the current post office. Careful now. Wow. Now, of course, I tease the post office. You don't need these big old buildings anymore, right? It speaks to automation. I will tell you this, though. Lester B. Knight Associates in 1996, when they built the post office, see the fancy schmancy lobby there on the right, the glass walls, the I-beams, those stone pillars. The lobby, very welcoming, very grandiose, very beautiful. They designed it like that so that you could rent the space out for different parties or events. So you know, guys, your birthday party. Yeah. Hey, ladies, your wedding reception. Yes. Maybe next year's Christmas party. Folks, if you take mail, if mail is your thing, and you can't get enough mail, do party here at the post office. Nah, there's nothing going on down here. It's of old seawalls that were made out of wood. The wood protrusions there beneath the tree line. Nature enthusiasts, we do watch duck and geese families raise their young down here. There's plenty of families to keep an eye on. Downriver on the right, you'll see signs of the old industry. That's an old steam-powered power plant. And then, of course, you got some pretty substantial remnants of bridges, or at least a bridge, which used to be here. Of course, the oncoming rental boat. Watch it as it walks back and forth. It's another term. All boats want to do this. Pilots are into that, right? We're teasing boats. Oh, she's killing it. I spoke too soon. Very well done. You honor us with your party. Pepsi products. So, catching your eye, no doubt, looking familiar, and people welcoming you. This is River City. Wave to that man up there. There he is. Talking about bored on a Saturday. Taking a break from Halo, right? I don't play video games, I'm sorry. So people love this. River City, okay, originally apartments, it is condos. There's over 500 of them. It's an S-shaped building of poured reinforced concrete, and the reason why it looks familiar is that it was the same feller who did my beloved Corn Cup building. It was Bertrand Goldberg. No right angles in nature, no right angles in architecture. Teachers, those of you who appreciate education, there's a preschool on the property here. You can peek in the windows and see what the kids are working on. There's some legit projects. Totally legit. Now, if you are a Seinfeld fan, I'll show you this boat, even though it's not ours. On your left-hand side, you'll notice the stern there. It's the Summer of George. It was supposed to be the Summer of George. Now, if you're not a Seinfeld fan, go home tonight, reevaluate your life. Get it together, Grouch. Again, as we come about, beautiful views, great photo ops off both the right and left-hand sides, and you'll notice polar opposites as you enjoy the views down here. Now, way down yonder, about a mile and a half south, you'll see those steel railroad bridges. As we come about, look in the distance past the bridge house there at Roosevelt Road. There's an enormous concrete counterweight, which again, drops to raise the bridge. And in the park down there, it's Pink Tom Park, Chicago's Chinatown. Take the red line south if you want some great culture, architecture, food. You can't miss the stop at Chinatown because they call it Chinatown. If you do miss it, you'll be at Sox 35th Street where the White Sox play at Comiskey. But I'm not certain if they're in town. They are in town. So you do care. Know thy enemy. That's what I always say. Beautiful views, as I mentioned, left-hand side. Go wide lens on this one. Turn the iPhone 4S sideways. You can get the old post office, you can get the Sears Tower, the boats, get the undulating element of River City. To the forward, I give you the future. Nice. Hope y'all aren't registered. No, it's all good. We have fun down here. And people have been hanging out on the water's edge since the dawn of time. I mentioned the native groups that lived, hunted, fished, and yelled along these banks all those years ago. Remember your first beer? Me too. So those guys are hanging out in the parking lot. At least the language is clean. It's wholesome. The building between us and the Sears Tower, just so you're aware, I'll tell you all about it as we get closer. It's called 311 South Wacker. That building has a lot of nicknames. Nicknames like the Sears Tower's neighbor. Yeah, no, I kid you not. Some people call it the Crown Building. And then at night, when those features on top light up very bright white with like thousands of fluorescent luminaries, we call it the White Castle Building. The firm that designed it is named Cohen, Peterson, and Fox. I'll show you two more of their buildings by Wolf Point. They always make very eclectic structures. Now behind us, I mentioned it briefly, Roosevelt Road. Folks, Roosevelt there, just behind us by the old steam-powered power plant, that's as far south as the flames reached during the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. The flames reached the lake off the right-hand side to the east, that's 2 miles away. The flames also burned to the west, left-hand side a mile away to Halstead, and they blew north through Chicago to Fullerton. Fullerton's easily 3 miles from here. Everything you see on our tour was totally destroyed by these flames. We're talking 16,000 to 17,000 buildings destroyed, most of which were made of wood. 25-mile-an-hour winds whipped through Chicago that night, October 8, 1871. Firefighting still in its infancy. Fireproofing tactics didn't really exist. The Chicago River, so remarkably polluted, the river caught on fire. Imagine flames leaping onto a layer of muck, with an M, muck. Anything from the Union stockyards, the meatpacking industry, the things that they dumped, use your imagination, right? The flames allowed, the burning river allowed the flames to leap in and out of pockets of downtown Chicago. Brick and mortar structures crumbled. They say cast iron storefronts on buildings melted off the fronts. Photos of the fire actually occurring don't exist, right? Photography that took some time, those cats would not have made it. Artists' renditions, though, are horrific. They show Chicagoans fleeing across the bridges, right, to alleged safety, only to find the flames creepily pursue them onto the river and onto the buildings across the way. 300 lives taken in the flames. 100,000 people in Chicago were left homeless. That is about 1 in 3 people at that time. Very sad, obviously devastating for the city. But determined to rebuild, of course, this fire, in a way, paved the way for the building boom that would lead to a more modern city. Ideas of steel framing in 1885, the use of terracotta and other fireproofing tactics. Firefighting naturally evolved. Zoning laws get beefed up. Edward H. Bennett, Daniel Burnham, The White City. 28 million people came to see Daniel Burnham's White City down in what is now Hyde Park, Jackson Park, and Washington Park. The grid system, the beautiful lakefront, all the things I mentioned that Burnham wanted to have. He wanted to build a city that would work. One of our nicknames is the city that works. That is actually more of a political thing than it is the actual construction of the downtown. City that works, city of big shoulders. We are the Windy City, Chi-Town, Chi-City. We are Hog Butcher to the world. And then locals might remember this, those of you from the Midwest, parts of Canada. 3 winters ago, during the polar vortices winter, we renamed Chicago Siberia. Welcome to Siberia. But hey, y'all, I don't talk about winter. Winter is the devil's language. I don't speak it. If you want to see the only building that remains from the White City, it is the Museum of Science and Industry in Hyde Park. Do go there, it's incredible. In the distance on the right, join me as we observe the statue on top of that very beautiful Art Deco building. Completed in 1930, that is the Chicago Board of Trade, the largest commodities exchange in the world. Halliburton and Root designed it. When that building opened up, y'all, in 1930, that was the tallest building in the world. A whopping 45 stories tall. That was a mind-bending height, though. Well, it didn't mean a whole lot after it was open for 8 months, because in Manhattan, 8 months later, boom, Empire State Building. There are similarities though between the Art Deco, Empire State, and the Chicago Board of Trade. So, 311 Wacker, the Crown Building, the White Castle Building, the Sears Tower's neighbor. It's 65 stories in height. It was built in the 90s, and what I want you to appreciate is how they've combined glass and steel with that red and pink granite. As we clear the bridge, you'll see it very nicely. And do have the cameras out. This is a good view of the Sears Tower as well, Chicago's tallest. And I'll get back to the Sears in a moment, but 311 Wacker, that red and pink granite, it's from Texas. What's up, Texas? Yeah, hold on. The octagon-shaped tower is flanked by these more right-angle box-like features, and the box features there on the edges are a tribute to the boxes that make up the Sears. The Sears Tower is 1974 all the way to 1996. The building is comprised of 9 separate bundle tubes. Each tube, theoretically by design, is its own skyscraper. Dr. Fazlur Khan invented that. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai features bundle tube construction as well. So imagine each bundle tube is a separate entity. They're bundled up for stability and they sway as one. And you're going to love this. The inspiration for the varied heights that are the bundle tubes was a soft pack of cigarettes. See that? So those are Marlboro Reds, or P-Funks, or American Spirits. Or maybe you vape, bro. Don't you vape, bro? So this is a good look at 311 Wacker. You can see why it's so popular and rather obscure. You know, no one ever really knows the actual name of it. Has the interesting use of glass, stone, steel. Very eclectic form, as I mentioned. And then as we wait for the Sears to re-emerge, guys and girls, there's a big mural here on the right-hand side, and due to its size, it becomes rather abstract. It could confound you. Others of you will get it right away. What is it? Don't blow it. Yeah, at the very top there you'll see Wolf Point, where the main and north and south branches collide. See the dot in the middle? You are here. Yeah, map of downtown Chicago, emphasis on the river. Yeah, it's not a coincidence, y'all, that you're on this boat listening to me tell you about Chicago. Our past, our present, our future, it's all here.
We need to chat with us.
Ahoy! See, people are getting after it early. It's good. It's a nice 19.4 winds. It's a good boat. So here's those views of the Sears that folks like so much, and here's some fun facts for you on the Sears Tower. The building has 28 acres of black aluminum on the facade of the building. They installed over 16,000 windows. The building has enough concrete in the foundation to build an 8-lane highway for 5 miles. There's over 100 elevator shafts in the Sears, over 2,000 miles of wiring. And during the height of the popularity of the Sears Tower, on any given day, there were 10,000 employees that came and went from the building. And the building is now called the Willis Tower. Willis is a British insurance broker, and they bought the naming rights about 4 years ago when they moved in. So one last look over your right-hand shoulder here at the Willis Tower.
Ne dem na we.
Willis,
What do you do?
W-I-L-L-I-S.
Now we should know we see them that they
Sears.
come on
You know, buildings change names a lot. Naming rights, not a big deal, right? That is a tough cookie to crack here in Chicago. Most people I know do call it the Sears Tower. Naming change, long time coming though. Sears moved their headquarters a long time ago out to the suburbs, Hoffman Estates. Hoffman Estates. Yeah, super obscure, random. Okay, nobody. That's all right. That's okay. To the forward, enthusiasm. Let's all wave simultaneously. That's the best Snapchat you sent all day, bro. Is that still a big Snapchat that the kids still on? I used to be cool, I swear. Really nice view here to the forward left. If you want to bring all the materials, all the engineering full circle, glass and steel, the international style, right? Limestone of the Art Deco style. The clock tower on the old brick structure there, that brick building is a warehouse built in 1914 by Daniel Burnham. It's one of 2. They're impressive. I'll show them to you. And then see all the truss systems on top of the Boeing headquarters, that postmodern style structure. So there's everything for you, right? Over 100 years of material engineering design. That's how you know you're nerding out on the river. When you know the views that make sense with regards to the theme. Which again, obviously is the old and the new, the architecture.
Yeah.
Really quickly for fun, on the right-hand side, guys and girls, the Merc, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. 40-story towers by Fujikawa Johnson and Associates, and then folks, they hung the 11-story trading floor in between the 2 towers. When they built those 2 towers at the Merc, they built the towers leading it outwards, gradually Boeing went easier. They did that, so they hung the trading floor in the middle, the weight of it would bring the towers back to its proper 90-degree right angle. Crazy stuff. If you missed the Sphinx earlier, if you failed epically, no, left-hand side, check it out. If you are Gucci on the Sphinx, though, join me here on the right-hand side. Pull back, take it all in. This is a very famous building, the Civic Opera Building, designed by Graham Anderson, Probst & White. It is Art Deco. Look for the French Renaissance influence. Behind the stone facade of the Art Deco house in Chicago, the third performance, the King and I. Yeah. Put your ball down in your tuxedo. Yeah, no, I didn't know. The feller who financed the Opera Building, Samuel Insull, very interesting guy, utilities and real estate magnate. We call the building Insull's throne. Look back at it, you'll notice it is throne-shaped. He is described often, Insull is, as being a very kingly fellow. They also say he built that opera house for his girlfriend. A lot of neat stories do circulate around the Opera Building. The Opera Building, I'll tell you, it opened 1 week before the great stock market crash of 1929. And then the companies that could afford to do so leased the offices that surround the Opera Building. And it is the monies from those companies that Insull used to keep the Opera House afloat. So they say that without those proceeds from the leasing of the offices, you wouldn't even have the Opera House today. The Voyager. So I mentioned briefly the clock tower on the old Bradley Brothers warehouse. It's Daniel Burnham site, and they were built in 1914. You can see the other one now. The clock tower one is behind the building. But just see how impressive they are, even by today's standards. Obviously, back in the day, no black balconies as part of the renovation. So the Bradley Brothers were just like your Sears and Roebucks, your Montgomery Wards, they were a handle company. So actually 2 years older than those buildings are considerably smaller. Everybody misses it. It's a 6-story tall building here in the heart of downtown Chicago, the birthplace of modern-day skyscraper. This is by Oliver and Roach. They did Chicago City Hall on LaSalle Street. Great Lakes building by Oliver and Roach. This is the first building in Chicago to add a green space to the water's edge. Also, folks, we were called the Sauganash Hotel, where Chicago was named. This is where it sat. Also, in 1860, on the site to the right, a temporary structure was built called the Wigwam. And it was in the Wigwam in 1860 that the Republican National Convention was held, and they nominated the fellow they'd have run for the presidency on the Republican ticket. You guys remember this 1860 Republican? It was indeed honest Abe Lincoln. Honest Abe, nominated to run for the presidency here in Chicago. And you know what? He won that. Of course, our 16th president, Illinois, the land of Lincoln. So a good photo up of the merchandise marts. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. The building sits on 5 acres of land.
Because of this building.
The building used to have its own zip code, 60654, and the building has 7 miles of hallways. Yeah, floors 1 and 2 are open to the public, so if you want to walk around in one of the world's biggest buildings, you can do so. The merchandise mart also features pyramids on top. See those pyramids there? That's a tribute to the pyramids at Giza. Another historical text. Arguably. So as you meet Chicagoans during your travels, I like to think we're nice people, right? Midwestern attitude. Architectural form, sightseeing, greatest company ever. Ask them, hey, what are some of your favorite buildings, or what do you like? Some people in Chicago will say this to you. They'll say, I love the curved glass building in Wolf. Downtown favorite, join me here on the right. 333 West Flacker Drive. By the same firm that did the neighbor of the Sears. Yeah, 311 South Flacker Drive. Home, Fox. Again, very eclectic. The bend in the building mimics the bend in the river. That's called contextualism. The blue and green glass mimic the blue sky and green river, which it reflects all day every day. As the base is done in polished marble and granite. See the circular vents that are in the base? Both same firm. And home is Fox. I'll get to that building. The curvy glass building. The most important thing that you should know about it, that building served as Ferris Bueller's dad's office in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which, as you guys know, is the greatest film ever made in the history of cinema. No, of course I'm being facetious. It's tied for first with Blues Brothers. Get it together. Alright, fine. I'll come clean. It's a 3-way tie. I'll throw in there for you as Adventures in Babysitting. I have a big sister, I watched that film like a gazillion times. Again, Lynn? Yes, David. Go to the very top of the building on the right. I'll tell you this quickly as the train goes by. There's a bridge-like feature up there. Linking the left and right-hand side. It's a tribute to the ridges here in Chicago. Also on the building, notice in the middle, above and below the windows, those panels have these rivet-like features. Those rivets look just like the rivets you'll see here on the bridges. Wall Street Bridge. So you get to see a really nice wall of material that's forthcoming. We're going to explore all this goodness. The construction you're seeing on the right will lead us to 3 newer sections of the Riverwalk. $100 million Riverwalk project. There's no people point behind us all the way to Lakeshore Drive. So I encourage you all to saunter along the Riverwalk here. But again, also up on the L train to explore our neighborhood. Wrigleyville, though out of town. Park Street's a good time.
2 hours. I was 2 hours.
Trader Thomas is our joint. Belmont, Sheffield. So what's kind of neat about the first section of Riverwalk I want to show you here is it's an amphitheater. There's plans to have performances done on barges and boats, and then in the summer they'll have bands that come and play right along the water's edge. So if you were to pretend that you were a performer on one of the barges, you can wave to all your adoring fans, all 22 of them. The contrast of old and new, really driven home here as you glance off the right. We say the LaSalle Wacker building screams Art Deco. Notice the enormous reduction of mass on top. Of course, it is limestone vertical in its appearance. In the 1930s, it was built, designed by Halliburton and Root. That is a highly sought-after building for downtown office space, LaSalle Wacker building. And sure enough, right next door to it, a brand new, very sleek, luxury rental building. It's called The One. 111 West Wacker. A one-bedroom there is $3 grand a month. Again, go buy some. A lot of folks love this building, particularly if you enjoy the newer structures. It was built to be 50 stories in height to match its neighbor to the forward right. To our immediate right, built in the early 90s by James DeStefano and Ricardo Bofo. This is the former R.R. Donnelly building, today known as 77 West Wacker. Please pull back and take this building off one big piece. We call this super scale architecture. The building takes on the appearance of a single Roman column. Go to the very top, you'll see a tribute to the Parthenon in Athens, Greece. We call it the Parthenon on steroids. And what I love about the building, you know, the old and the new, they combine modern glass and steel with classical stone. If the stone weren't there to encase the structure, you might lose the glass in the sky. So again, the reason for the 50-story height of the 72nd West Wacker building was to mimic its neighbor built 3 years previous.
Hey, that's my car right there.
35 West Wacker.
No, it's on the other side.
As you glance over your right-hand shoulder back at these two buildings, you'll notice they're very different. They complement each other.
But you just don't park anywhere.
And of course, more of the Riverwalk. We're going to wave simultaneously. Give it to him. He's our hello. Kalu Kalei. So I used the Jewelers building earlier to show off a portion of the old skyline. You keep your eye out for the Jewelers, starting to view on the right. It's another downtown favorite. And if you want to come in the sky with me up on the right above the Orchard Steakhouse sign, that gold leaf is real and it sits on top of that green burnt terracotta tower. The tower and the gold is a champagne bottle. The building was built during Prohibition. They actually said the building broke all the rules. The green terracotta is very tacky, that gold leaf, and of course you all know how Prohibition was treated here in Chicago. That building was done by Daniel Burnham's sons, Herbert and Daniel Jr. Burnham. It's the former Carbide and Carbon building. Today it's the Hard Rock Hotel. It's on Michigan Avenue, go check it out. You know, up close and personal, the building's very beautiful. And the afternoon sun hitting the Wrigley building to the forward, check it out. The Michigan Avenue Bridge, or DuSable Bridge, as we talked about earlier, it's where the first non-native resident lived, Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable. Also the old shoreline of the lake. It's really nice in this area. The skinniest skyscraper in Chicago, part of the old skyline. See on the right-hand side, the white glazed terracotta, built in 1927. That's the former Lincoln, or former Mather Tower. That building used to actually have 4 more floors on it. The 4 floors up top were found to be structurally unsound, so they were removed. Before they did so, though, the upper floor was only about 9.5 feet wide. You just walked upstairs to this tiny little room up there. Mentioned Fort Airborne, 1803, used to sit at the site of the London Guarantee building. There's placards in the ground that the drivers show you where the airport was set. This was at one point one of the U.S.'s westernmost forts that was built, named after Henry Dearborn, Secretary of War under President Thomas Jefferson. It is not yet open for the season, but it's inexpensive, and it's the kind of thing you can do relatively quickly on your way to other things. Built in 1920, the double-decker Michigan Avenue Bridge was designed to look like Alexander III's bridge in Paris, France. The completion of this bridge and the completion of the Wrigley paved the way for northbound development along Pine Street. The Mag Mile used to be an industrial corridor, soap manufacturing, other kinds of factories, warehouses. Today the Mag Mile. And if you join me here on the left-hand side, just past Conrad in the sweet blue coat, you'll see the Tribute Tower, iconic, the neo-Gothic style cornice with those flying buttresses, Indiana limestone, and then what you're looking at there, the Tribute Tower. That is the winning design out of over 250 entries from architects from 16 different countries. When in 1922 the Tribute Company had a competition, they had designed the greatest building in the world for their downtown Chicago office. There it is. Tribute Tower, winning design, the winning architects. Raymond Hood, John E. Howells. The restaurant on the first floor is called Howells and Hood. Food. It's Chicago's biggest craft beer selection. Tribute Tower. Whether you dine there or don't, do walk around the Tribute. Embedded in the base of the building are pieces of stone from around the world. And they're labeled. They're very impressive. Here's four to entice you. At the Tribute, go see stones from the Berlin Wall, the Great Wall of China, the pyramids at Giza, and the Parthenon in Greece. That list continues, and it is now stored to Wrigley, as Wrigley is going through a $575 million renovation. That's just the price for a World Series. In fact, let me be the first Chicago to tell you, because you've not yet heard this, this is the year. You know, when you're a tour guide, you gotta be indifferent, you know, cups, socks, what have you. It's all good, baby. Yeah, it's called the Crosstown Classic with the Sox by the Cubs. You want to take romance, right? Go to any one of the Sox by the Cubs. When you hop on the red line, it's interesting, right? It's a lot of black and white, a lot of blue and white. It's fun. Yeah, it's how it is. They're changing things a little bit. But I really feel built in 1914. If you'll join me here on the right-hand side, I want to show you guys Aqua. Aqua is a very popular structure. It's like modernism to the max. In the distance, you'll see an 82-story glass tower with these undulating balconies. Aqua was designed by a female architect. Her name is Jeannie Gay. Jeannie Gay won an award for Aqua. She's the only female architect in the world who's ever built a tower of that size. Some of the balconies there on Aqua, they go out as far as 13 feet. Other balconies go out as few as 2 feet. Any balcony though on high-rise is worth it, right? If you want to get off into Aqua, you may do so. Hotel Radisson Blue, that's floors 1 to 18. If you want to get higher than that, 19 through 82, you've got to make friends with someone who lives there. Crazier things have happened. When you go to the base of Aqua and look straight up, the balconies compress upon each other and you're left with this solid limestone wall. The building is a tribute to limestone outcroppings here in the Midwest. And I'll grant you, it's called Aqua and it looks like strip out of water, but I wanted you all to be aware of what she was going for with those curved linear rockets. Jeannie Gay has been slated to build Vista Tower, which will be enormous. It'll be right in the little void that you see here to the right. She also was just recently selected, Jeannie Gay was, to build an American embassy in Brazil. She's from Belvedere, which is near the Rockford area. She's a U of I graduate. Jeannie Gay was that. So yeah, something in Chicago had to be done. So in the year 1892, the Army Corps of Engineers came to Chicago, and they began an 8-year-long process to reverse the flow of the main branch of the Chicago River. On January 2nd of 1900, they opened the floodgates, and they were successful. The river was reversed. So the engineers accomplished this by dredging on the Chicago River. They dug it about 15 to 20 feet deeper than it actually was. Then they built what is now called the 28-mile sanitary and ship canal. It's a long canal, 28 miles. The dredging process and that very long canal would utilize gravity to pull the water in from Lake Michigan. And as it comes in, it would pick up the toxins, pollutants, waste material. It would send all that yucky stuff down through the South Branch, eventually into the very long canal, 28 miles, and then it was all gone forever. Great job, Chicago. Way to go. You're the best. No one can stop you now. Well, that water's got to go somewhere, right? The water goes into the Illinois and Des Plaines rivers, which ultimately feed into the Mississippi River. And then long before that water gets down to Nolens in the Gulf, what major city does that water go right through? Yeah, yes indeed, St. Louis. BSTL, man. The gateway to the West. They were not too quick. And they filed a lawsuit against the city of Chicago. So forget the Cubs card series, you know, it was in fact the football situation. It's a family show. Other lawsuits were filed by the great states of Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan. They all claimed that Chicago is taking more than its fair share of Lake Michigan's water. A real concern developed also that Chicago would drain Lake Michigan dry. The fifth biggest lake in the world, one of 5 Great Lakes. 20% of the world's fresh water is in these Great Lakes. They're very important. 38 years back and forth it went, lawsuits. It's a very long time, 38 years. Finally, in 1938, the Army Corps of Engineers came back to Chicago and they built the Chicago Harbor Lock. That yellow boat you saw go by earlier has come through the lock, going from Lakeside to Riverside, we call it. It's a place to do so. So long story short, Lake Michigan's about 2 to 4 feet higher than the water level here on the river. Just beyond these walls, beautiful Lake Michigan. Make sure you saunter along the lake at some point. Left-hand side of the vessel, the sun in your face, but you can see the beautiful skyline there. Chicago has arguably one of the world's most beautiful skylines. I mentioned about water taxis. I mentioned briefly getting out on Lake Michigan. Yeah, take our classic lake tour. You won't be sorry. People describe our skyline as breathtaking, inspiring. And I've talked to captains, you know, various people who work in the industry 15, 20 plus years. They'll tell you they don't get tired of it. It's really nice out there, so do get out on Lake Michigan. Head to Navy Pier and kick it. It's a good time. Shakespeare Theater, IMAX Theater, shopping, dining, drinking. The Ferris wheel's not yet open. That's a brand new Ferris wheel. It's not the one you've been associated with Navy Pier since 1985. That one's new. Navy Pier is a quarter of a mile in length, so do what I do, walk to the very end of it. You know,
No proof, my recording is
good views of the skyline as well. And as we do come into the dock, as you guys travel around Chicago and enjoy the views, I hope you've appreciated learning about the architectural styles, the history of the waterways, the boating culture here in Chicago. Again, we try to provide a good product, we had a good time, found this worth your hard-earned money, especially tell your friends and family about it. As we do come into the dock, could everyone please make their way to their seats? Please don't rush. You need to hurry back to your seats. The captain, the deckhands, like to have everyone seated as we bring 90 gross tons of weight into the wall. The suggestion to be seated begins polite, and then we just go from there. Oh, come on, it's all good. We'll stay jovial, but please do be seated as the vessel comes in. And as we do dock, I'll do one more building for you. Straight ahead of us, Lake Point Towers. Watch out, we do call it the Flask Building. This is a one-of-a-kind building. It is the only residential structure in Chicago built east of Lakeshore Drive. 60 stories in height, built in the 60s. Students of Mies van der Rohe designed it, George Shipwright and John Heinrich. So when they broke ground in the building, the city of Chicago sued them, saying, hey, you can't build on land east of Lakeshore Drive. So they were preserving our lakefront, right? Very important to us. Well, a very interesting, and I call it a Chicago-style legal loophole. Existed that allowed the building to be completed. Lake Point Towers here is not built on land east of Lakeshore Drive. It is built over the railroad. Railroad air rights was the legal loophole which allowed developers to procure the property they built over the railroad. That left Chicago out of the deal. The city closed that loophole right up. No more shenanigans. There she stands, one of a kind, Lake Point Towers. What railroad is it built over? Remember the railroad bridge in the North Branch we saw suspended? The 1848 Galena Chicago Railroad. It used to come all the way out here. People who have lived there include Sammy Sosa, Ozzie Guillen, Joakim Noah and Scottie Pippen, Alice Cooper, and of course Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. And Kurt Russell's best film, while I have you here? That's right, Captain Rock. Followed closely by Overboard. You were thinking Big Trouble in Little China? Alright folks, with that we are back. Please do remain seated until the gates are open and everyone's ready to go. On behalf of Shoreline Sightseeing, I want to thank you once again for joining us. My name is David. I'll be dockside to answer any questions you might have. Have fun, stay safe, thank you, and good night.